Okay, so as of the first day of Libra, our autumnal equinox, it was officially fall. I have achieved my final form. I'm finally at full power, which is much lower than it used to be as I get closer to 30. Um, but every year, I absolutely love, love to revisit Meg Ryan movies, Meg Ryan rom-coms specifically, but
Yes, we did this in London.
we did. Like when you left, which was during the very beginning of fall.
Yeah, it was September 9th is when I
Mhm,
left, is when I arrived and when I left.
mhm.
And
Oh,
you stayed the night to help me like with my shit
mhm.
to the airport. And
Because
we
you
just,
take a lot of shit to be
yeah,
leaving a country for good.
yeah. And I was like, I honestly like don't know how I'm going to get on a train with two massive, yeah, which we ended up having to repack anyways. Beside that point,
Real quick, I'm pretty sure the airport security girl thought that we were like, not security girl, but like the one who was supposed to check our tickets to get into the airport. Because I didn't have the right ticket. I think she thought we were lesbians.
uh-huh.
And so that like I had to say goodbye to you before you left the country because she let me through.
I mean, it's not completely untrue. You
Yeah,
did have to say goodbye to me.
she's not far off.
No.
We had slept together the night before.
Yes. And watched rom-coms.
Yes, yes.
With that night we had watched, well, we watched everything but Harry Met Sally. We watched Anastasia,
Yep.
and then I made stir fry and we listened
Mhm.
to 90s music.
Yeah.
And like then we watched You've Got Mail
Yeah.
because we were like, let's just stay up late. We have to wake up at 6 a.m. anyways.
Yeah. It's
So
harder if
so
you're
that
like deeper into sleep,
I can sleep on the plane, which I didn't do.
naturally.
um so yeah. Uh I remember when You've Got Mail came out.
Oh my
It,
God.
it was like,
Sorry.
I know I'm old.
Sometimes you just say things like that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I am proud of it. I am. I am proud to have been born in the 80s. I'm not joking.
I know.
I'm
I'm not.
very proud of that.
I
There's a
support.
lot of people who are jealous of that. No.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of them. I very marginally remember the 90s,
Yeah,
just enough to make it like nostalgic, but
it came out in 1998.
mhm.
I was 9 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's like the perfect age to like start getting into rom-coms. And I just
Mhm.
remember my friend, my best friend and I would like, would watch it. And it must have come out in the fall or something because it's
It
just
had to.
always, it had to have. And then like the first, like bit of it is just so folly. I mean, it
Mhm.
ends in like the spring, but they, you go through Christmas and everything. But man, it's just like so nostalgic. And like I just love that cranberry song because of it. Like,
Yes. Dreams.
yeah, it wasn't until about like 4 or 5 years ago that I like finally like revisited it and watched it like
Mhm.
since I was a child. And I like messaged my best friend like, "Oh my god, it's You've Got Mail." Like we just like loved that movie. I don't know.
It's a good one. Um, it's actually my mom's favorite movie, like favorite rom-com.
Nice.
And so I watched it a lot growing up. But
Good.
yeah, exactly. You got to get a proper education growing up, and that
Yeah.
includes Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Um, I do love in like the 80s and 90s rom-coms when you'd have that uh like the passage of time.
Yeah.
So You've Got Mail does that because it starts like very firmly in fall, and then you follow them through winter and into the next spring and everything, probably into like early summer. When Harry Met Sally does that, because
Yeah.
like passage of time is a very key thing in When Harry Met Sally. And then also like Notting Hill does that,
Yeah.
specifically in the scene where he's walking through the markets and he's kind of mourning uh oh shoot, what's her name? Julia Roberts leaving.
Mhm.
It's Ain't No Sunshine, and like
Right.
he's walking like past the same vendors, but they're selling new wares because it's winter. He kind of like changes clothes, but it's like a very smooth transition between each of them. I love that shit.
Yeah.
I am a slut for that shit. I gain power. I gain like XP when I watch movies that do that. Um,
It's almost montagey,
yes, yeah.
like in kind of a meta way.
Yeah.
Because
I
I'm
think
like that with montages.
yeah.
Like I will forever like love the cleaning montage in Snow White when all the
Yes. Yeah.
animals are like doing dishes, and I just like it clicks so many boxes. It like everything gets cleaned. There's
It looks pretty.
animals. You're
Yeah.
singing, you're making pie. Like I do that.
Mhm.
Like I do that. Like I made biscuits the other day after cleaning my house. Like
Because you gotta feel that you
I
gotta find the
recreate
serotonin
that. Yeah,
somehow.
exactly.
um, I think that's really something that modern rom-coms are missing. Like it all happens in a week now.
Mm.
You know, like the plot itself. They meet on an airplane and they hate each other. And then 2 days later
Bump
they're
into each
saying,
other.
yeah,
Yeah.
they bump into each other at the same inn. And then they meet each other again at the same bar 3 hours later. And
And
like,
it's like a mute. It's like a meet. And until it's a meet cute.
yeah,
Like it's just
exactly,
like
exactly. Until like the one moment when the asshole looks human.
yeah.
But what You've Got Mail and When Harry Met Sally really nail is the time it takes to fall that deeply in love with somebody.
Yes.
The scene, the New Year's Eve scene at the very end of When Harry Met Sally, when they're like bickering because they hooked up and it got weird and neither of them really knew how to handle it. And he runs all the way to the party because when you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start right now. Like that scene
Yeah.
has set the bar so high for me when it comes to love. I can't imagine why I've been single for what is it, 6 years now? Because that wouldn't have made sense if all of their meetings had happened within the span of a month,
Yeah.
even.
Yeah.
But you see, like the 5 years later, and
And
then the last one is like a full year, basically.
yeah. And you feel it too, because I remember it's like there. I mean, I've only seen it once, and it was on the plane ride after we had watched You've Got Mail, because you were like,
Yeah,
now you have to watch Harry Met Sally, and I was like,
yeah,
okay, and so I watched it on the plane ride, and what I got a good sense of was the passage of time, not only like in the growth of their love, but their like being acquaintances,
yeah.
like there, because there is a strong sense of like, oh, they don't really know each other that well yet.
Mhm.
And you definitely feel that. Like I kind of remember being at, like when they're at the, what is it called? Sharper Image.
Mhm.
And like they run into like an old,
His ex-wife.
his
Yeah,
ex-wife. And she just kind of doesn't really know what to do because they're not really together. Like, and
yeah.
so it's kind of this interesting thing where it's like, in the preface of the movie, we know like the love stories about them, but they don't know that yet. And it's
Yes.
so interesting to see that in these different situations where she does care, but she knows she shouldn't care.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
that like kind of having to be kind of like not care and putting on that kind of airs and like kind of
Yeah,
lying to yourself essentially. Like she
yeah.
lies to herself big chunk of the time.
They both do because
Yeah, they
he's
both do.
still so hung up on his ex-wife
Yeah.
that like he can't see that the feelings he's having for Sally are slightly more than just platonic.
Yeah.
He's finding a lot of emotional comfort in her. Because after that scene specifically, they go to their friends because their friends got together and moved into with each other and everything. And he has this whole moment where he's like, it doesn't even matter because in 5 years, you're going to divorce and you're both going to fight over that stupid table. And then he like storms out and they're like, well, that was weird.
Yeah.
But then they bicker outside. And I always love that scene because one, it's a very human bickering scene. He kind of like he throws a couple of like shots back at her and she's like, no, I get that you're angry, but no. And then he just immediately apologizes
Yeah.
because as much as he is heartbroken over his ex-wife, he hasn't realized that like in that moment you see that him and Sally, like their relationship, whatever, however it's defined at this point, is more important to him than the anger he's feeling over his
Yes.
ex-wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that scene. That whole sequence from them being in sharper image to their apology on the stoop.
Yeah.
Um
I really liked the scene. What is it? Is it she's sick?
in You've Got Mail.
No.
Oh. Oh, it's
In
when oh no, it's when are you talking about when they hook up?
do they hook up?
Yeah, so that's why they
I
like
can't remember.
no, you're
It's
good.
I just remember them being her being. I don't think they did, but maybe they did. Um, I think she was sick or upset or something.
She was upset because like
Okay.
she had spent basically 10 years with this guy or 5 years with this guy, and he didn't believe in marriage. He didn't want to be married.
Right.
And
Right.
so they broke up because she wanted
And
marriage
she
and kids.
called. She called him Harry.
Well, she
Right.
finds out that he's getting married to his like paralegal basically that works at the firm
Uh huh.
with like less than a year after they've broken up. So they were
Yeah.
together for like 5 or 6 years, no marriage. And then she calls Harry
Yes.
because she's like, it's not that he didn't want to get married, it's that he didn't want to marry me. That
Yeah.
line breaks my heart
Yeah.
every time.
So what I noticed about this scene was Harry comes over and like consoles her, and they're friends.
Yes.
And there's this weird sense of intimacy that they have that they don't
Yeah.
really realize is at that level yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what's really cool to me about that story is that they don't realize that they're in love and you're
Mm-hmm.
just watching this like awkwardness. It's almost like you just want to kind of scream at them
Yeah.
a bit. Like it's very frustrating in a very satisfying way. Like it's just
Yes.
so subtle and so well done. Like so that scene where it's like they're hugging and then it's like a little
They had a little
it's
bit of a tighter
it's a
hug
little
suddenly.
too
Yeah.
intimate for this to be friends and they both
Yeah.
know that and then they bang? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
She kind
So
of goes in for a kiss and then he like returns it and
but it's
then
kind of drawn out. I remember
it
it just
is.
kind
It
of
is.
being like it wasn't that was a good film in a lot of ways because it gave time. Like the dialogue was really good.
Mhm.
It gave time to things. I don't know who directed it, but
I I agree with that, especially because like they had fallen in love with each other so naturally that they just hadn't seen it. And like that's why it's almost so frustrating
yeah,
because they call each other before bed every night,
yeah,
basically, or at least most nights. Like that's the impression you get. And like that's a very intimate thing
yeah,
to have with somebody. And then even between these like they're both in bed, you got like the shot where like he's in bed and it's really dark and it's like you got his dark window behind him and he's watching a dark show and he's got his dark book on his dark nightstand. And hers like she's got like it's all flowery and the bright
yeah,
light and her floral bed. And there's like a penguin stuffed animal on like the shelf behind
yeah,
her. um so you see those, and then like in the next scene they're trying to set their friends up with like, because that was how their friends got together, is Harry was supposed to be setting Sally up with his buddy and Sally was supposed to be setting up Harry with her friend.
yeah,
And for some reason they just can't, it doesn't click for them that the reason it's not working is because they're talking about each other. So
yeah,
Harry will do a line where he's like, oh well, Sally does this,
yeah,
and Sally's like, oh Harry does this, and it's like that's not how a date works. Do you two know what you're doing at all? Like, do you
yeah,
see it? How do you not see it? Because even their friends, I think it is the morning after they hook up, they both call them, and so they at this point their friends are together. They have their phones on their side of the bed because it's like the 80s,
yeah,
and so they've got their own landlines. And they both answer and they like turn to each other and they're like, they hooked up, because they even see it. Like everyone sees it
yeah,
except for Harry and Sally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're on the other line and they're like in bed together and they're like, finally.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I also I love the structure that uh Reiner, the director, put through it, where you've got the kind of the old couples caked in, like sandwiched in
Yeah.
between some of the scenes where they're talking about how they met. All
Yeah.
of those interactions are so real.
There's one of them that like made me cry. It was like
Which one?
I can't remember, but it was like they were really, really, really old.
They're all old.
I know, but they
Let's
were
see. I
like
can I
really,
can
really
remember
old.
some of them off the top of my head. So you've got the couple where like they were married for 25 years and then they divorced and then he was with another lady and with another one, but like the girl, the wife, the ex-wife, now current wife, is sitting next to him correcting him on all of the women's names.
Yeah,
You've got the one where they're finishing each other's sentences. They're like, I was born on the same day, same floor. We worked for 12 years in the same building, never crossed paths.
yeah,
One day, and it was fate. That one's always my favorite. There's the old Asian couple where he's talking about how it was like an arranged marriage. And so he snuck over
yeah.
to the other village to see her to see if she was pretty. And she was, so he said yes. Um, oh shoot. Those are the only ones I remember, other than like Harry and Sally's.
Yeah, I remember those now.
Yeah.
um, it was one, it was just a moment where, like, it might be one that you've already said. Because I don't remember what they said, but I remember what I felt.
That's fair. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to describe is it was something along the lines of like, she was like, she knew him more than he did.
Mhm.
You know, like maybe it was the finishing each other's sentences, or it was something where she was filling things in for him,
I
like
think
about
that's
what
the
was going
one.
on. And then he says something finally. And it's like, it just like steals the show because he's just
Mhm.
like, oh,
I
but
think that's the
like it's
first one that I
something
mentioned.
she couldn't remember because it was about her.
Mhm.
And it was just like,
Yeah.
it was so cute.
That's I love the way that they framed that
Yeah. Yeah.
because you get like the different love stories.
Yeah.
And it's like they're like little mini movies. Like you can see their love stories. They're talking about these things.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't know if she has more chemistry with Billy Crystal or Tom Hanks, or if it's just the magic of Meg Ryan. But her her ability to like hate a man until she loves him, so spot on. So chef's kiss, like
Yeah. Yeah.
so good. It's so good. Even in Anastasia, she does that shit.
Yeah.
Um, so I watched You've Got Mail last night because I hadn't seen it in years. So well,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hadn't seen it since we watched it. And I guess Taylin and Vinny had never seen it at all. And so I was just playing it in the living room because it was easier. It was big
Yeah.
TV. And within like 20 minutes of the movie starting, they were both on the couch
Yeah.
watching with me. They both cried.
Oh,
So
when
if
they
you need like
cried.
another, like if anyone's watching this and they're like, I don't know if I'm gonna watch it, they both cried, which is saying something because I'm usually the crier. And
Yeah.
I think I forgot how emotional that movie can be until I was watching with two people who had never seen it before. And I was like, are you guys okay? And they're like, it's just so beautiful. Like
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Um the Okay, so not really Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, but she's dating Greg Kinnear for the first
Mm-hmm.
like half of the movie.
Frank.
And yeah, Frank, I
He's so funny.
he really is. And they had the perfect opportunity to really make him an asshole, to really make us hate
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And they don't.
And
And
they
I love
mutually
that.
break up, and I love that too.
Yes. Because there's a couple of times where like when they run into Joe Fox and what's her name, Patricia
Yeah.
at the party, And Patricia's like, oh my God, you're Frank so and so. Like
Yeah.
she's like gassing him up and everything. And he like gets blinders on and he's like, yes, yes. Oh my God, yes, that's me. I am a god. And then
Yeah.
a similar thing happens with the lady on the television show, and he's all like, because I think they're talking about it during their breakup scene, and she's like, "Is it the girl from like the show from the
Yeah.
talk show?" And he's like, "Well, but she's Republican," and he's like, "But I just can't help myself," and like that's like so oddly cute.
I know.
Uh,
Well, because he has so much conviction, like
yes,
about technology and stuff. Like that's the first like storm of him that you get is like
yes,
he's like I was like, oh, I'll write a book about the lettuce movement. Like he's
the
just like,
Luddite, yeah.
yeah,
It's like
like
who's talking
what?
about Luddites, Frank?
I know, like, and then he just like it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Like I I love it because you do genuinely think that he's really going to be an asshole
Yeah. Well,
because he's kind of full of himself,
he's full of
but he's
himself, but
funny.
he's selfish
Yeah.
in like a endearing way.
Yeah, exactly. Um and I find well, okay, what am I trying to say? So Joe is also selfish, but in a very different way. His whole line, like, it's not personal, it's business. I love that they kind of confront that in one of the later scenes that they're talking in, because
Mm-hmm.
for him, it's not personal. For him, it is just a corporation. And he doesn't see what he's doing. He's just trying to succeed,
Yeah.
which, like, more power to him. Yeah, I get it. Like, you're trying to be a successful businessman, but you are also not acknowledging, like, Patricia very, very point blank says this to him, where she's like, you have this really funny way of just forgetting that, like, you're the reason she doesn't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to accept that. Like,
Well,
he's
and
very blindly
yeah,
selfish.
I like her. I like their dynamic because she's like the worser version of him.
Yes.
And so the fact that he starts seeing discrepancies there, like he's just like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know, because, and it's not necessarily that Kathleen Kelly softens him.
Mm-hmm.
It was already off the very first
Yes.
scene. I mean, maybe through the email chat room or whatever, but I do think like it was never right. I think,
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think
yeah,
it softens him. I think he just, like, he has that,
he just has more of a heart than he
he becomes
thinks.
self-aware of where he's been a dick.
Yeah.
The scene where they meet and she doesn't know that they've met, when he, like, they've got
The
the
rose.
book and the rose, yeah. In his, well, real quick, so he's writing the apology email, right? And I love that it takes him like 4 tries and he gets so like animated with it.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
and like flailing and everything. Like, it's a very Tom Hanks
Yeah.
action, but also very real. Like, when I think about some of the emails that I've responded to lately, and like how physically
Per my
impossible they
last
felt
email.
occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but that's the point when he makes a conscious effort, one, not to lie to her, because he erases a few lines and he's like, I'm sorry that I didn't show last night. Delete, 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 delete. I'm sorry about the way last
Yeah. And
night
then he's
turned
like tick,
out.
tick, 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 tick,
Yep.
tick, 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 like, yeah.
And the fact that he takes full responsibility. He's like, you can blame me entirely for how terrible your night went. And that's when he has to start being self-aware. He doesn't have a choice at this point. Life has not given him the choice, the option to be ignorantly selfish anymore. And then, like, when we had said previously about, like, the romance is drawn out in a much more realistic way. He doesn't overnight become this knight in shining armor. He has
To work hard for it. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. He has years of like assholery to work through.
Yeah.
Because it's also been an armor around him.
Well, you see his dad and his grandpa.
Exactly. So, like, how much of this is learned? And so, like, that takes like so long to work through.
Yeah. Or it takes the right person to like want
Oh,
to get out of it.
yes. I mean, I agreed.
Yeah.
But I do like that it's a very realistic growth. It's not just like he sees it and then he's poof, better person.
So a few things.
Hmm.
It's my turn.
Yes.
Um, I love that she gets kind of annoying. I like it
Hmm.
because she gets like caught off guard. Like one of my favorite scenes is when they're around the table getting food, and she finds out he's Joe Fox, and he's like Fox, and then he's just like goes off about the Godfather, and she just sits there like like they're just so funny.
Yeah.
Like I just watching it again the other day, I was just like, this is like so good because he's just like, he knows she's going to be upset. Like he knows what's coming. He knows he's kind of a dick and
Yeah.
he's just going to be like, I didn't know who you were with. Like he's just being a dork. And then
He's
like,
trying to
she's
like
just got the knife.
evade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And she's just like so upset. And then he starts taking the caviar and she's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That caviar is a garnish. Like I will never forget. Like I
The
hear
like
that in my head.
the
That
eye contact
caviar?
as he takes more, as he just like
Yeah.
scoops the
Yeah.
whole edge.
Yeah. And
And I
she
had
just
never,
takes it off his plate and puts
yes,
it
I'd
back.
never caught that before. I was like,
Yeah.
is she putting that back right now?
Yeah.
in
And I
in these
love too.
times,
Yeah. I love too that like she is just so she's annoying like so relatably
yes, yeah.
because she does that thing she says too, I can't remember if it's the same scene. Um she goes, don't you know you're supposed to have a last name? Like, what are you, these cocktail waitresses? Oh, I'm Jessica. Oh, I'm like, she's just like
Yeah.
such a fucking like, she's just so kind of old fashioned and like doesn't
Yes.
know what to do because she's
Yeah.
so hurt, you know? And like, she just like, and so I love Kathleen Kelly more than ever, I think, after
Yeah.
watching this. Cause now I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's just like so good.
She
Um,
is. Uh
And I like that she wants to get worse. She
yeah.
wants she
Well,
wants to like get mean.
because she
And
doesn't know how.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
when they have that and this is why this film is so brilliant is that you have these conversations outside of that like dynamic. So then they go home and write to each other.
Yes.
And they get to have conversations about communication, which is really interesting. And so like he's giving her like advice, like she wants to like be able to say the thing that she wants to say in the moment. And we've all been there. Like we
Oh
all
yeah.
wish we could just like tear someone apart. Like we're having conversations like days later about how it should have gone down.
You're in the shower and you're like, oh, fuck
I
me.
should have
Like I know.
said
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he says like, what does he say? I kind of wrote it down. Like you get provoked and he's like, and then you're Mr. Nasty. And then he says, but then like remorse soon follows. Like you feel shitty. And then it's that scene when they're at the cafe with the rose and
Yep.
the book that she does it. And she's like, and then she goes home and feels shit. Like,
Yep.
yeah, it's just so
Yep.
good because not only is like you have kind of four people
Mhm.
talking to each other for a minute.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very
Well,
inception-y.
I like that she breaks a little bit with that, like the need to be the better person, because it is kind of detrimental to her.
Mm-hmm.
It's not until she has the moment where she's like getting publicity. We need to call this. We need to post this. Can you write this article? Where she's actively trying to fight this. I would argue the only reason it doesn't work is because it's too late.
Yeah.
Like she needed to do that sooner. But
Yeah. When everyone was telling her to.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because even the author that runs in
Yeah.
and she's like,
She's like,
we'll
I could do
hold
pickets.
rallies, we'll
Yep.
do anything. And then like
She ends up doing the signing
The
at
signing at
Fox.
the other one. Yes, exactly. That one I was like, what a fucking traitor. Like,
I know.
but like it's not that she gets bad, it's that she becomes more relatable
Hmm.
in her journey trying not to be the best person ever.
Yeah.
One of my favorite kind of switches is leading into the party where she finds out who Joe is, that he's like actually Joe Fox. Because walking up, her and Frank, she'd been like, I'm fine. We're fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then she finds out Joe's there and she's like, who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah,
Like, she's so
she just
clearly not
holds the
fine.
knife. She just holds the knife at him,
And
and then
Frank's like,
Frank's just like, "Oh, hi, I'm
like,
Frank. Hi,
yeah,
I'm Joe Fox." And he's like, "Oh," and
yeah,
then that
exactly.
exchange too with the four of them when
Mm-hmm.
she's just like next to Fred, like because he's just like, "Oh, the killer of all like small business," da, da, da. And
Yeah.
then and then starts like getting in on with Patricia, and then
Yes.
he's just like and she's just coward, like it's just like such a good, like
Yeah.
the chemistry is really good. Yeah. Yeah, she gets close, you just get to see more of her, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of you get to see more of
Yeah.
him as well.
Because she's not relatable until those moments.
Yeah.
Like she kind of is, but in a very flat movie way.
Yeah.
It's when she has a couple of those lashing out bits where I'm like, okay, like,
Well, but you really get to know them,
yeah, exactly,
like
exactly.
when they're writing letters to each other,
Hmm.
like when you're like, oh, I also love, New York in the fall. Like
Hmm.
if I'd been there, I would love it. I know.
Um,
And just like the bouquets of sharpened pencils, doesn't it just make you want to buy school supplies? Like you're already falling in love with them,
mhm.
like, and that's the brilliance of this like dynamic of
Yeah.
them like being pen pals or whatever, and then meeting each other and.
And then it makes it real. Because
Mhm.
it'd be one thing if they're just like exchanging these very like almost poetic emails with each other and they're still assholes in real life. But like the moments when they crack and she's like, she gets to say the mean thing or
Yeah.
he has to be apologetic in person
Or
is when
he's
you,
helping her
yeah,
with her business,
like then you know the emails are doing more than just
yeah.
this escape. They're actually helping change them for the better.
Yeah.
um
I
One of my
love
favorite,
Go ahead.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say when he stands her up and she goes and the whole shop is like, what happened? And they're
He's
like, oh, so he
remember
stood
when we
you
thought
up.
Frank was the Unabomber bomber?
She's like, that was different.
Yes.
Like that was a real threat. Like,
I was just going to like mention, so the shop,
mhm.
just the shop, like all of those guys are just so fun.
They're
Like the
amazing.
first scene with them when she's like, and what is it? I don't know her name, but I love the actress, the other gal, and just their outfits. Let's just
Oh
be
my
like
god.
real honest right now. She's
Yeah.
got like the white collar with like the sweater and like tights and a skirt, and her hair's in braids. She's fucking
Mhm.
adorable. And then like Meg Ryan's just like in a sweater and like a jumper over it, like with
Yeah.
tights. Like I wore that today, so like I love the. I get all my fashion sense
Meg Ryan.
from Meg. Yes, exactly.
I
We
was
both
thinking about
do.
that recently. I was like, was I just dressing London or was I dressing like Meg Ryan in the 80s and 90s? Who's to say?
Is there a difference?
Not really at this point. Um,
But I just love, like, she's like, did you have sex? And she's like, well, no. How? She's like, cyber sex. And then Birdie comes in, which Birdie is
Birdie
like
is a national
amazing.
treasure.
She is.
She's like,
I was
well,
like,
the love from Spain, he
yeah,
ran Spain.
he
Like,
ran Spain. I was, I got really drunk the other night and I was just
good.
going off about Birdie to Milo. I was like,
Yeah.
Birdie is what every woman wishes was a real thing for
Yes.
them. That is what every woman wishes would be their life when they're that age. They don't need money. They just have all the money they need. They have all the stories. They have all
Yep.
of their trinkets, odds and ends, and like that sort of thing. And like,
Birdie's like the fairy godmother of the story.
yes. And like,
Yeah.
this is a on Earth kind of way. Like it
Yeah.
feels like it could actually happen. Like she's magical in like a real way, and you're like, ooh, and you just like want more of her.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love the whole shop's dynamics because they don't ever really have conflict.
yeah.
They all really enjoy each other. So like later when we find out that the guy, I can't remember his name, when he got a
George,
job over George, thank you. When George got a
not
job
Fox.
at Fox, and
Yeah,
she's just happy that one, he got a job, and Joe is talking about like how you basically have to like have a PhD in
HD.
children's literature to get a job in his department,
Exactly.
which means that like
She did a good job.
she did a good job, but
Yeah,
also he's not coming in at like the ground level. Like Joe
yeah,
recognized and gave him like a good.
yeah.
So it's one of those things where she's very happy that he's able to survive. She doesn't like hate him for like for betraying their, I guess, unsaid contract of like avoiding Fox books. But also that Joe recognized how important her shopmates were
Mm-hmm.
and made sure to support them if he could.
Yeah,
Not that Birdie needed it. Apparently, she has a lot of money.
yeah,
So again, I would very much like to be here in
yes,
30 years or 30
yeah.
minutes or
30 minutes. Yeah. I want to mention too also that this came out before Harry Potter came out, and this paved the aesthetic of late 90s cafes
Yes.
and bookstores that primed what like would what Harry Potter sustained. Like when
Yeah.
I think about Harry Potter, I think about bookstores with coffee in like the 90s
It
because
was a
that's what
very
it
like
was like a very special moment in history of like yeah.
we so when we were watching last night, I think one of the downsides of having watched this movie so much growing up is that I took a lot of the very distinctly 90 things for granted. So this was the first time that I was watching and I was like, this is probably one of the first times that somebody's seeing a bookstore like that.
Yeah.
Like that was a new thing when this came out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's almost why he's the villain too. It's all really bright.
But
You've
like you
got the cafe
see
in there. There's tables for people to study in.
exactly like you're like watching people get their like sandwich out of their bag and stuff. That
Yes.
was like super cool and fun. Like everyone
Yes.
grabbed their newspaper and went to Starbucks with their book.
Yep.
Like even her in the cafe with the book and the rose. Like this was that culture
Yeah.
was the kind of the last of it. Like this was like the last of like getting a newspaper
It's like
because
hipster to do
they're
that now.
literally yeah, exactly. Like they're
Yeah.
literally writing emails.
Mm-hmm.
Like that it's
Um,
literally the transition into like blogs. Like after that it became
yeah.
everyone had a blog. Everyone would read the news. So you
Mm-hmm.
would like go to the web like you would type in the website to like get your news. Like it wasn't in your like
Yeah.
and when email was like letters, it was before the forwarding, all that fucking
Um,
nonsense.
but like, yes, yeah. But like we're watching this and Taylor and I, whenever we watch movies, I should clarify we don't do this when we're like going to movies and things, but when we're watching movies in the living room, we are very actively watching those movies, like yelling at the screen and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, we were both getting angry at Joe for obvious reasons. He's this like corporate slug who's trying to destroy like what was it that Frank called it, like the last soul kind of bits of New York City. Um,
Yeah,
but
save the
then they
shop around the
then
corner and you will save your soul.
yeah. But then we see inside Fox Books and both of us were like, "Oh, that actually looks really nice."
Yeah.
Okay, I would definitely go there.
Yeah.
It's the movie has this really great way of not fully demonizing anybody.
Yeah.
Even when Joe's a dick, like you still want him to be good.
Yeah.
Like you want to hate Fox Books, but actually like it looks really cool inside. And when she goes in later after she's fully closed up the shop, when she just kind of like walks in to see
Mm-hmm.
what killed her baby, her like her
Yeah.
mom's baby. it's not a sad scene. The kids are just like sitting in the aisles, they're reading.
Yeah, it's not like stark and soulless necessarily.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, and I love that they do that.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because now it's kind of going the other way. Like Borders is no longer a thing.
Yeah.
So like, because people want that small town like bookstore feel, and so it is kind of interesting how it is reverting back. I just wish there were more cafes. I feel
You
like
got to go to like the right Barnes and
like
Nobles.
Starbucks isn't really what it used to be.
Yeah, no.
Um, we need caffeine heroes.
I know, I
But
know.
like, I think,
You're preaching to the choir.
yeah, like I think, like there in Olympia, there was this, when I lived there, there was this place called Browsers, and it was just like, you walk in and you just know that you're going to find something magical because they had new books and used books. And it had like, it was just like, like very warm, very shop around the corner.
Yeah.
Because if there was a place I would rather work, it would be shop around the corner.
Yes. Yes.
But there's nowhere to sit and drink coffee. So hello out there, can we like combine them? Like,
Put it into the ether.
can we literally just have like, which they do in Seattle, they have like Elliott Bay Book Company, and it's like a big like bookstore. I don't think they have used books, but it's just new books. And then they have like a little cafe in the back, which has been closed since pandemic. But like, that's kind of what you need that's what we need. This is what we need, everybody. And used
Like
books is like, please,
we
like
just
if
need more
you're
bookstores with like
selling,
cafes.
if you're selling books that have been out for years, there's plenty of copies out there. Like, can we just, and there's nothing against, ordering used books online, but there's just something way more special when you find it yourself.
No, I agree. I
That's my
agree.
favorite thing to do is shop for like used books.
I think my favorite thing about like book shopping is going to the cafe afterwards.
Yeah.
So the Barnes and Noble that's near us here has like the almost Starbucks in it.
Yeah.
And the sitting afterwards after you've bought your books and just like you don't even start reading them yet. You just got them next to you.
Yeah.
While you're like you just feel the presence.
While you scroll your phone.
Yeah, while you scroll your phone looking for like your Starbucks app.
Yeah.
And then hoping that they take it here.
Well, I used to live next to a Barnes and Noble, and I used to just walk there and grab the books, not buy them, and just kind of flip through them. And then I like was there the other day meeting a friend, and I was like watching people do that what I used to do. Like you just like I saw one, she had From Blood and Ash and A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I was like, yeah, you go buy those, bitch. Like,
yeah.
she was like,
you go read those in private.
Yeah. And then she like, yeah, no, but she was like testing them out. And I'm like, you want them all.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a special, exciting moment, corporate, because it was corporate coffee and corporate books, Starbucks and like coffee and like corporate books just became, it like revolutionized like,
it did
the world in the 90s, late 90s.
I do have a problem with big corporations. So like part of the reason, because I was also a Borders bitch, part of the reason like Borders closed was because Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
And so I do have a problem with bookstores like that because it is like the whole premise where Fox Books pops up and then any small business bookstores around them die is true. If they could just be less aggressive with their capitalism, that'd be nice. But also like because they figured out that we want coffee when we do that, we're going to do it anyway. So if you put it in the store, we're not leaving. I guess to be fair to Kathleen Kelly, though, she had a children's bookstore. And when your demographic is under the age of 12, coffee selling isn't quite your top priority.
No.
So I'll give her that.
Yeah.
But so like being in London, there was a lot more small bookstores, which not a London thing, it's just like a big city thing.
Yeah.
Because
I don't know, because I mean, Seattle's not the biggest city, but I
yeah,
feel
like
like I feel
out
like there's
here
not
we've
as
got
many
a
bookstores.
fair amount. Um, New York, obviously, like that's where You Got Mail is. They've got a fair amount. Um, but at least I remember in London, it would always be next to at the very like there
Mm,
would be a Cafe Nero right there. So you'd
hmm.
go to the bookstore, buy the books, and then literally just kind of like loop out and loop back into like the adjacent room, and it
Yeah.
was a cafe.
Yeah. Well,
That
and that,
was
yeah,
that was close enough.
that was like, there's that Cafe Nero and Blackwell's
Yes, yeah.
that
Or the London Review.
I did most of my studying for my dissertation there because I just
Mhm.
loved it. Because I loved being in a cafe with a bookstore. Like
Yes.
there was just something really fun and comforting about that. And there's not very many of those there. Waterstones, I think, had,
Yeah.
I don't think they had a cafe. Oh, they did. Yeah, I went to that once in where all the schools are.
Yeah.
There's that Waterstones there.
I did a lot of mine at the Maritime Museum because I was using their archives.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was literally like the museum itself, and then kind of in the middle in the back was the gift shop, which had a lot of books, one of the gift shops, I should say, and
Mm-hmm.
then the cafe. So I would go in through one gift shop, which had a bunch of like maritime related books. I almost bought too many books from there. And then I would go to the cafe. And then when I would leave, I would go through, they had an exhibit on space at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got multiple books from there as well. And I was like, they know what they're doing because they've got the coffee. They're offering the decently priced books. So
Yes.
naturally, I'm also going to buy these books because I'm stressed for my dissertation. And this is
Yes.
the only way I know to bring happiness to myself at the moment.
Yes. Exactly.
But yeah, there's something intoxicating about a bookstore and a coffee shop, at the very least, just close to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think we should do like a blog post on like top study spots in London.
Yes.
Because I feel like because I went to that one place, Calendar.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
went there a bunch for a while there. But
I would go to that Cafe Nero on Great Queen Street on Holborn.
oh yeah, the
Like,
one on the corner, kind of
yeah.
corner. Yeah, yeah, that was a good one.
Mhm.
There's cafe nears everywhere. I
I
love it.
know. I know. They're so like it's definitely a chain, but the vibe in them is so much warmer
Yes,
than like Starbucks.
I would also go to Le Pain Quotidien. The
Yeah.
uh, Le Pain de Quotidien, the bread of the day in French, and it's like a chain, but like they
Mhm.
had like really good spots. There was one in Camden. No, not Camden. Yep,
I was just thinking
the
about Camden
Market
though.
Borough Market one.
Yes, yes.
That one's
Oh,
cool.
dude, I still want one of those mochas. Oh my God, I forgot about those mochas.
I have a picture of them. I mean, I have a picture of the stand, so that we'll have to
Yes,
do a post about it because
we'll have to.
I saw that and I was like, yep, heart,
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
that.
Um, oh, I miss
I
Borough
know.
Market. It's so good. No, I was just thinking about Camden because I got a couple of shirts from one of the vendors in there, like their button ups, and I love them so much.
And you
But
want more?
yeah, and I want more. But I also like I'm not as skinny as I was when I lived in London and walked
Yeah,
everywhere, and so like they don't quite fit right anymore. And I'm like, if only I could buy
I know.
new
Well,
ones.
we have to go back.
Now, yeah, I guess we just have to.
I had a dream that I went back and I took Milo and he was miserable, so we have to go back.
Yeah,
He doesn't like traveling. I don't blame him.
yeah,
But I was just like, but then I woke up and I was like, but if I go back, it's not going to be the same.
yeah.
And
We're visitors now when we go back.
there's something really like, um, really dark about that. I don't know. There's something very sad.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that office quote where I think it was Andy. Andy is like, I wish when you were in the good times, you knew they were the good times. But the unfortunate thing about having studied and like lived there the way we did is that like we knew it was the good times.
Yeah.
And when those endings were coming, like you could feel them like a fucking freight train,
Yeah.
like coming towards you.
Yeah.
That's what's frustrating. Because
Yeah.
like I know that I had a fucking blast living in London. How did we get on this topic? I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
had a fucking blast living in London. And now when I think about where I'm going to move, I have to remind myself that it's probably never going to be that good again.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
When you realize that the best has come
Yeah.
and is not yet, it's not
Yep.
coming again. Like in that way, like that's
Yep.
it was like the best, at least for me, it was like the best in some ways and also the worst
Yeah.
because I
Same.
was away from Milo and it was like I was also very depressed.
Yeah.
So it was a double-edged
I think there
sword.
is like definitely a certain level of cognitive dissonance since we've gotten farther away from it because when I first came back, the the like shadow of my dissertation was still so heavy.
Yeah.
But now that I've gotten far away from that specifically, and it's just like what I felt like living in London and what I felt like studying out there, like not studying for the dissertation, just studying and like existing out there is, it fills my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you had a purpose.
Yeah.
I liked that. And it was something everyone could understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not too big to say that there is a level of confidence that you get from being the one that's living in London
Yeah.
to your peers. Like there's a bit of that. And then there's, well, I'm getting my master's. So it's like, I don't have to explain myself to people. There's
Yeah.
just something very relieving about that as well. And then just that feeling of dread when you do get back and now you have to explain what you're doing back
Yeah.
and what's next for you. And it's like, then the fucking pandemic happened and
Yeah.
I didn't
Like,
have to answer that
like
question anymore.
literally. So you went back in September, but I went back in January. I stayed like the full stint because I was
Yeah.
trying desperately to like stay forever.
Yeah.
Um, it was like I finished, I got back, took a breather, and like I like exhaled,
Mm-hmm.
and then on the breath in, it was like COVID's everywhere. We're locking down. Nothing's open. Nobody's hiring. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
this is quite possibly the worst thing that could have happened.
We totally should have started our podcast then. It would have blown up because
Yeah.
everyone was listening and doing shit, you know?
Yeah.
But it's fine.
I was far too depressed though, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I firmly agree though with the like, okay, so because we're doing like the podcast now and we're both like semi like self-employed.
Yeah. Eh, you are.
Yeah. Well, you still do some of your stuff on the side. We're probably actually doing the same amount of self-employment work.
I'm just going to a job as well.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
slightly more stable than I am. But like when you would say exact, so like when you would say, "Oh, I'm living in London. Why? I'm getting my master's. Cool. What in this? Cool." Like generally, it stopped right there. They're like, "Oh, that's cool,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "Boom, boom, boom!" Like you get a little like plus ones in your head as like
Yep.
the serotonin
Yes.
goes off a little bit. But now I can be like, "Oh yeah, I mean, I'm kind of working from home. I'm like kind of self-employed." People are like, "So what do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a virtual assistant."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, use your brain for like 30 seconds. Think about
Yep.
the word assistant, and that can do it for you. And then the amount of work that you're doing just to like have to explain to somebody like it's an admin assistant thing, but
Online.
um, just pales in comparison to I'm living in London. I'm getting my master's. Oh, that's cool. You
I
you can't
know.
ever get that high again.
No. No. Exactly. You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.